started, first introduce myself. This is Diane Baker. I am the LSTA coordinator, Library Services and Technology Act. It's a federal program here at the State Library and Archives. And we have just opened up our 2015, and that's federal 2015, LSTA grant cycle. And I want to go over just a couple of things with our webinar format that we have here today. There's an ability to send me questions or comments via our chat, which is on my screen, and I believe on yours should be in your lower right-hand corner. There's a box there. You can just start typing. You can also, there's an ability to raise your hand, such as if I start going along here and maybe I'm not checking that chat. If you look up kind of right in the center, there is, looks like a person with their hand raised, and that's there. You can raise your hand to get my attention. If I'm not speaking loud enough, or if I'm speaking too loudly, you can scroll down. If you open up that drop down, there's several different things. Laughter and applause are always welcome, as long as it's something, at least the laughter that I think is supposed to be funny, but pretty straightforward and informational here today. And I wanted to let you know that we are pretty solid with at most an hour. I do have question sections throughout the day today. And if you want to ask questions, again, the chat is one way. You can, if you were dialed in through the AT&T teleconference, you can unmute your phone and we can get your question that way as well. I will, if it comes in via the phone, I will repeat the question to make sure it's clear in case the audio doesn't come across completely. And I think with that, unless you have any questions at this point, I think we might just dive in to looking at the Library Services and Technology Act. Okay, so the program, as I mentioned, is it is a federal grant program, and today we're going to be spending some time talking about the process here in Nevada. We'll do an overview of what the program is. We'll talk about the proposals, not only development of the proposal idea, but a step-by-step. We'll talk about an introduction to evaluation. It's become a very important part of this program, and on the federal level, they are using the information that come from the final reports of these projects more and more, not only publicizing them on their web page, but they use the information and compile it to use it for our congressional delegation, specifically the Nevada delegation of senators and Congress, congressional representatives, but also to support the program as a whole. And the information is also made available to other organizations, including the American Library Association, since they're a strong supporter of keeping this program going on the federal level. Also talk just briefly about CIPA, which is another federal program that's embedded in the LSTA program, the proposal form, and we'll do a little wrap-up at the end. Throughout the segment today, there will be a place. I have little landing slides for questions. Feel free, you can hold your questions there. You can raise your hand, type in, or ask a question along the way. Since this is introduction orientation, trying to get people familiar or refamiliarize them with the LSTA grant program, want to make sure we get your questions answered as they come up. And it's possible the questions you have, some other people here might have the exact same question. So let's get started here. LSTA, it's the federal program. It comes to us through the Institute of Museums and Library Services, IMLS, you'll hear me use that term. The full name that you saw before is the Library Services and Technology Act. And one of the great aspects of this is in its name. This is a program solely, wholly, and only for libraries. This is not a general program to support things that, reading or literacy, although they can be part of this, but this program is to libraries if they choose to do this kind of program. Particularly, we're part of what's called the Grants to the States program, or portion of the Library Services and Technology Act. There are other things that the program funds. And the program funds money to the state library agency of every state and territory within the U.S. So every state does have a program. It can look very different from state to state. So if you've been in a program, participated or heard of it in another state, you might see that we look different or they look different from us. Okay. For Nevada, we have an annual grant cycle. It is tied to when we're able to access funds. This program is not forward funded. It does have more than one federal year in which to expend, but we do not know our federal funding from year to year. We do wait for the congressional budget to see what our potential is, and then we also have to wait for the actual budget to be completed, signed, passed, and signed by the president before we actually get any funds. So we open our cycle in August. This is where we're at now. We have two steps in our grant cycle. The proposals are the first step, and the proposals will be due in mid-September. This is the process that we follow fairly closely year after year. The applications are the second step, and they will be due in mid-November. Now, if you've been involved in our program at some time in the past, our dates are a little bit different, but only by a couple of weeks. We're pretty close to what we've been doing over the years. Now, the grant review is done by our State Council on Libraries and Literacy, and we do this at the January meeting. And I'll give you a little bit more about that as we get going through here. So for Nevada libraries, our program, we have a competitive grants program. The competitive grants are for $5,001 up to around $100,000. The $100,000 isn't a hard ceiling, but that's the general range that they have been funded in the past. Mini grants are for up to and including the $5,000 mark, so that is a hard ceiling for those grants. We also have several statewide initiatives that come out of our annual allocation, and these are things that are funded separately, that the competitive and mini grants are a portion of our total award. The types of things that are funded are targeted subgrants. This would be for things like summer reading program. There are some continuing education for library personnel programs that are available. Resource support, we're talking about things for statewide electronic database. We have quite a few databases that are supported by the federal funds, also by state funds. So that's still a combined, coordinated effort to make electronic materials available to libraries statewide. We also support talking books and, as I mentioned in targeted subgrants, continuing education for library personnel. This is just representative of some of the statewide initiatives. There's some other digital programs done within the annual program as well. Okay, there's some eligibility basics, and one of the basic things is it must be a library. It must be a real library. Staffed, has to have regular hours, regular budget line item. The program does not fund the creation of libraries. The library already has to exist in one form or another. For public libraries, there is an additional aspect of minimum standards that if you're a public library, you're already familiar. You need to be doing this on a regular basis, but meeting those requirements. Generally, participation in interlibrary loan within Nevada, Information Nevada, and if you have any questions on that, we can provide you with more information. And of course, you need to have a good proposal and ultimately grant, and that would get you right into the running for the funds that we have every year. Now, who can apply? As I mentioned, it's definitely libraries and academic libraries, library consortia, and we're usually referring with library consortia to formal consortia. There can be kind of ad hoc partnerships developed, and usually everything will be under one library for the fiscal management of it, but the partners can also be participating in an ad hoc kind of partnership or consortia. Public libraries, public school libraries, and special libraries will be the potential participants in each year. We don't always have a representative from every single library type, but most of the times we do. Okay, specifically for this year, we have opened as of August 1st, we opened the grant cycle. Your grant proposals will be due on September 17th, and we'll talk more about the specifics of getting the proposals submitted. October 24th, we do have additional required training. Last year, we started with what I was calling Webinar Wednesday. So we didn't have hours of time devoted to trying to get through the different important points of getting an application in and with the information that will impress reviewers and having the types of information also that we have to pass on to the federal level. Instead of having one long seated session for that as a webinar, we broke it up into 3 successive webinars. And those are required. And we did last year not only the live webinar, but I also posted the webinars on our YouTube channel, and in order to qualify, we just had you signature certify that you watched the webinar, and that would meet your requirement for the training. So November 13th, this is a little earlier if you've been with us before, November 13th is the date when the applications will be due. January 14th through 15th will be the State Council on Libraries and Literacy. That's the dates for the meeting. And the meeting is held in Carson City and video conferenced. And as we go through, there is more information on exactly the logistics related to that meeting. Now, the next part, I can't say are exactly fiction, but they're unknown aspects. Hopefully they get the budget signed. Last year I think they got it signed earlier than some other years. So once they get the federal budget passed and the president signs it, then it can go through the years of federal bureaucracy, and it does take a little while after it's signed for the state to get our official award sent to us. So we are looking that if we get a budget passed in the first couple of months of the year, usually by March we're able to send out the notifications of who have been funded. And we do try to get that out as soon as possible. As I mentioned, we do have an additional year beyond the current or the 2015 federal year in order to execute the program. And that is the one thing that they have given us, since we're not forward funded, they have given us an additional federal year to complete the project. Okay, so since we do have a 2-part proposal process, proposal first, application second, what happens? So when the proposals are due, submitted on the 17th, which is a Wednesday, staff evaluation is the next step, and we have several members here at the state level review the proposals to make sure that they have the basics, they have enough information, follow the LSTA plan of the types of projects that are to be supported, and then we do email information to the grant writer. Most of the applications, or most of the proposals, are considered at a good level from year to year. We're able to move those to the application phase, sometimes with a few suggestions on, add this, take away that, consider this type of thing for your full proposal. Occasionally we do get a proposed idea that is not allowable for one reason or another. There are some things that raising funds, lobbying, and the like are not allowable costs under this program, under most federal programs. So we do review them for not only eligibility and allowability issues generally for federal funds, but there are some additional things within the Library Services and Technology Act as well. So we email that information off to the grant writer. And then we have the application workshop I mentioned, and you move to the application phase. And then we have the deadline for the applications in November. But please do note that we do need a proposal. This is 2 steps, so we need a proposal in order for an application to be accepted at our November deadline. So this is one of the landing pages I had. If you had any questions, feel free. If you are on the phone, you can unmute your phone and send in a question that way. Type one in the chat. And as I mentioned near the top here, you can raise a hand if you had any questions. Okay. Well, so far I don't see anything, but don't hesitate. Don't be shy. If you have a question, feel free to type it in, and we can address it as we're going along. So let's move on to the next section. And proposal development, kind of our step-by-step thinking through an idea that we want to put through as a proposal for funding in the federal program. So getting ready. One of the best ways to get started, if you have an idea or still formulating an idea that you want put forward, make sure you're looking at your own strategic master plan. If you're a public library, you have a master plan that's required under the statutes under NRS. One of the things you can access there. It doesn't have to be that plan though. If you have an action plan or a technology plan, something where you are already fitting into the goals and the direction of your institution, and that makes for a very strong proposal and application to show how you are already connected in with your organization. Then definitely you need to review the LSTA plan for goals and priorities. You should have gotten a link to the 5-year plan. It is a 5-year plan that is on file with the Institute of Museums and Library Services. And this actually, it may be a little different than some other federal programs. The 5-year plan is the, really it's our marching orders. It's our action plan for how Nevada will spend the federal allocation each year for the 5 years of the program. So we don't actually do a, if you do federal programs, we don't do a 424, that kind of form in order to apply for the grant. We put forward our 5-year plan, and once it is accepted by IMLS, then we have the ability to accept the funds annually for the time period of the 5-year plan and move forward from that point. So we don't put in an annual request for funds, but we must stay within our 5-year plan goals and priorities. So take a look at that, and then depending on the size of your organization, we do have libraries that are part of a much larger jurisdiction. Make sure that the individuals that are beyond your particular unit or your particular outlet are there, are on board, and it's possible there may be more than one library. If there's a larger library with multiple outlets, you might be in there with several other outlets wanting to put forward some grant applications. So you want to make sure all this is out there. It's been a while, but we did have it at one point where a library branch did put in the application, put in all the information to be considered, and one part of the administrative unit of the jurisdiction had no idea, and kind of a tricky situation because it came out at the time of the grant review by the State Council on Libraries and Literacy. So you want to make sure you check all those boxes and get your support within your organization. If you're a one-person library, you just need to make sure you got your own support. That's fine. Okay, a critical element for developing LSTA grants is that it is all about the end user, and this has been a defining aspect of the program, especially from the federal level. This comes across when we get the information from the federal level, from IMLS, also in the evaluation requirements that they have for reporting back at the end of a grant cycle. They are looking for information, they are looking for projects that are based on the end user and how it will affect them. And so you're looking for programs or projects that will make a difference to your target users, to your community. So there's a lot of things that we know are good for a community or for the development of resources to reach out to the community. The time here is to start thinking about them in terms of your end users. So step one. We'll just go through this part. You're identifying the problem or an opportunity. Sometimes we lack something. There's a service that we're not able to do, something in that area, or we want to reach out to a group we have not been able to reach effectively. Sometimes it's the positive. There's an opportunity available to us because of something going on in the community, going on within the school, maybe within your city jurisdiction, that you can come on board and join in some other program that's going on where the library would have a viable option to make that go forward. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. It can be an opportunity that you can jump on board with. So you want to think about these questions. What are the needs that must be addressed? Again, keep in mind your end user perspective, and doing that, if you keep thinking about who is the target group, who are you actually trying to reach. If you're in a school, you may be looking to reach all your students, and or you may be looking to reach the students of a particular grade level or maybe a couple grade levels. If you're looking to expand maybe something in science or technology, you might want to focus on a grade level or two so you can make a good impact on that instead of trying to hit something really broad and not be able to make the impact that you're hoping. And think about it from the point of what do they need. In schools, it can be the teachers and the students. In the community, you can you take a look at a particular segment of the population. It can be an age-related segment. If you're reaching out to seniors, you could be reaching out to a different social group as well. But again, it's shifting, taking a look at what that group needs. Okay, step two. So we've got a need, we've got an issue, problem, opportunity, proposing a solution or proposing something to address what the concern that we have. And looking at if the library is the best agency. The library might be the best agency, but maybe with a partner or two where you can be truly effective. So look at the best way to meet that need. The library definitely can be the lead agency, but may become very strong if you're able to add a partner. Start thinking specifically about how the library and staff can actually help, some actions that can be done to address that. So you'll again list out a couple of the activities to address that. So this is what you're thinking about in what you're going to put in your proposal. Then evaluation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I have a little segment on this, but basically evaluation is what will success look like. And you're making this proposal at the beginning, or you're making this idea at the beginning with your proposal and develop it more with your application. But if you have a need or an opportunity and you're able to address it at the other end, what is the final product going to look like as you succeed with your project? You want to be thinking about how individuals can be changed or impacted. It can be as a group or as individuals. And any other impacts and changes that might come alongside. It's fine for there to be improvements or impacts within with library staff or with other, maybe not your initial target population, but if you can see, oh yeah, if I do this, this group over here, not my primary, but they will benefit too. So you can look at secondary benefits. Ultimately, we are looking for one good outcome or impact. And this is a short-term program. We are funded year to year. This is not designed as really as a long-term, multi-year program. So we understand that there's only so much we can do with outcomes and impacts in our limited time frame. And one good outcome is usually, or impact, will be just fine for our program. And lastly, for the proposal, we're estimating the budget. You don't have to have hard and fast figures, nail everything down, but try to have good estimates, looking for whole dollars. So you're putting in the form LSTA dollars first. There'll be a 10% match required. The match can be in kind or local cash, or it can be a little bit of both. One of the things, lost revenue is not able to be used as a match. And it's really, at this point, it's best estimates. And sometimes this gives us an idea of where, when this is being reviewed at the state level during the staff evaluation. If some numbers, since we've been dealing with a number of types of programs, certain ones we know a general range things could be in, and so we can see if you're in that range. If not, high or low, we can give you some clarification information when we give you the feedback from the evaluation, and open up a dialogue if needed so you can get the right type of data for the project that you're proposing. Okay, so I'm at another questions segment. Any questions at this point? Nothing's been typed in as we're going along. No hands raised. And nothing over the phone. So let's continue on. And as I promised, we have a little bit more about evaluation. And this has become a very important aspect of the whole federal program. I mentioned earlier that the information that's provided at the end of each federal grant cycle, we provide specific evaluations of each funded program to the federal level. It's used not only for their review of the program at the Institute of Museums and Library Services, but they use the information from every state to compile reports for state delegations. They combine information in general for the support of the annual funding of the program, and as I mentioned before, to other organizations that do use this to help support the federal effort to keep the funds for libraries available. So take a look at a couple of things. I've kind of already talked about the importance of impact, outcome type evaluation. The focus here shifts from the activities of the project and of staff to the benefits for patrons and clients. Now, it's not that you don't report that you've accomplished things, that you've had, let's say you opened up a type of family literacy project, and of course, you still want to know how many people you reached, you still want to know how many meetings, how many people attended. If you have other things that you can count, you still do count these things. But going beyond that, looking at ways to see how this has made a difference to your target audience. Now, overall, the impact and outcome information from this project or for other programs that you might already be doing with internal funds is a way to show how the organization, your library is making a difference, whether it's in your community at a school, in your public community. If you're at an academic environment, it can show how the library makes a difference. And when we're all competing for funds on every level, this can be a very powerful tool that you can use. Now, for our proposal, you will be stating who it will benefit and make a brief description of the change that you hope the project will make. And you can start thinking about, okay, what kind of information am I going to collect? That's what the identify outputs is. So these are the things that if you were having a program, counting the number of people that attend, if you are adding new materials, maybe identifying those materials with a code in your circ system so you can see how often they've checked out. Those things still good to collect those type of data points. So, and you don't have to outline all of this, but this is a good place to get started about thinking how will the data be collected, when and who. Smaller projects, usually you're in charge of everything from the how, when, where, making it the whole project roll out. But if you do need to involve other parts of your organization, other people, then you need to start thinking about that, making sure that if you're going to write them into the project, that they will have the time or are on board with participating in it with you. So example, I kind of mentioned family literacy before. Let's say you have a project that you want to propose, reaching out to parents and caregivers of early readers or pre-readers. And so you want to, of course, count you'll count the number of people that participate, but where you're going is looking at potentially how many times per week they read to their child. That could be you do a pre and post survey if they agree to start in your project. They tell you, maybe we read one time a week, and by the end you can match up. Maybe they've increased to 2 or 3 times a week. That shows the impact that has been made where there's an increase in reading time. You can have periodic self-reports by the parent to the project manager. I have questions here because different programs can use different types of things. This is just an example of one way you can address it. And as we go on, I do talk more about evaluation when we get into the application workshop, but it's good to start thinking in that direction as you're putting your proposal together. I have another example here. Let's say you want to reach out to an underserved part of your community, so they will adopt the library as a resource. Maybe you have an ethnic community that their country of origin, their location that they've come from, they don't have any tradition of public libraries like we do here. And anything associated with the government is maybe a little suspect. Not sure if there's a trust issue involved there. So you're looking at reaching out to a different kind of group, and that, depending on the group, can will direct how you will develop your program. So your target audience are the members of your underserved group. One of the ways you can look at making a difference is part of your project is to have more individuals in that group actually get library cards and use them at least twice during the project period. That is a huge impact where you've made someone go from, they've become a library user from being a non-user. And it's not only just getting the card, but they have actually used the library. that is a huge impact. May not sound like much, but really when you think about it, they have now become, taken advantage of the resource that they have in their community and are using that to their benefit. One way to do that is you can code library apps during the grant period, so you can track to see the usage. Most systems can usually set that up pretty easily and anonymously, so it's coded and it's tracked, but and then you can, number of ways that at the end of the grant period you can make that go away, but you have a powerful way to show the impact that you've made for an underserved group. And if you have programs or collections that are tied into your outreach to this community, definitely we want to know how many programs did you have, how many people attended, how many items did you add to your collection, and even generally circulations with them. So those are the things you still count, even though it doesn't sound like it's exactly the change that it's made. You can consider doing surveys. Some target audiences might be better or they might be more interested at doing a survey. You may have a group that you're targeting that's not their thing, whether it's an online survey or whatever. So the tools that you use within your evaluation are determined by the groups or your project itself. So summing up, you're going to be focusing on one real or immediate problem, indicate how the project will address the program you have or the problem you have, and how it will benefit your library users. Definitely when we are looking to address an issue, there can be negative sides to it as far as there's lack of resources or something that hasn't been able to be done. And it's fine to state that, but when you get to determining and laying out your program, you want to definitely take a positive approach and the positive side of being able to make that a difference there. So thinking of things and stating them in a positive always comes across very well, not only in the proposal, but in the application. So I'm at another little question point here. And I'm looking. Oh, you guys. No questions. I hope it's because everything's clear and on that part. The other thing at this point, I will say that just because you have no questions at this point, but when you start working on the proposal itself, or even further on, and moving forward into the application phase, do not hesitate to contact me with any questions, because really our goal is to provide you with the information, the resources you need to be able to compete for the funds that we have. Okay, thanks, Shar. So let's move on then. I promised we'd talk a little bit about this, the Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA. It's embedded in the LSTA program. It's really kind of the other way around. LSTA is embedded in CIPA. When they wrote this CIPA legislation in the late 90s, I'm not quite sure how they determined to embed LSTA in it, but it was. And it is now part of our program. So generally, CIPA doesn't apply universally to every applicant, but it does apply to public libraries. It applies to public and elementary and secondary school libraries, or consortia, whether it's ad hoc or a formal consortia that exists that includes either one of the above, a public library or elementary or secondary public school library. Now, that's one part that we look at if you are one of those two. And if you are requesting federal funds for internet service or for new computers that will access the internet. So it's really two parts. You have to be one of the types of libraries it affects, and it has to be for one of the services that is covered under CIPA. So that's how you need to apply. those requirements. Now again, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to fill in more on that part. I can tell you that public school entities are invariably covered by, already meet the requirements of CIPA, that if you have any computers and the like in your school district, you are almost for sure already meeting the requirements of CIPA. So there would be no issue. It's usually with public libraries or consortia with that we have to take a little closer look to see if you want to meet the requirements of CIPA, or the other option is you write a project that doesn't involve money, federal monies, for internet service or for computers that will sit on the internet. And this is for public libraries. If your public library does not filter or provide technology protection measures, then you would have to look at a different source than LSTA. But if your library is receiving E-rate, again, public library or school libraries, they get E-rate. If you're receiving discounts for internet or internal wiring, the higher level funding, then you also have to comply with CIPA to meet the requirements of that funding source as well. Again, any questions on this part, if you think it might have an effect on your project, don't hesitate to send me a question over email or whatever, and we can make sure that that's clear for you. And federal stuff is more federal stuff there. Don't see any questions, so let's go on to, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of what the actual proposal form looks like and what is expected at the when you complete it and submit. We do have the basic parts. It's not a real long form, but you have an information section, a section where you can put in need or opportunity, what you will do to address that need or opportunity, your measures for success, and that's your evaluation, and then the budget estimates that we spoke about. And there's an eligibility certification as well. So this is generally what the information section looks like. It looks a little wonky here on this page when I dropped it in, but this is who you are, how we can contact you, the type of library, and then the basics. Are you looking for a competitive, a mini grant, and about how much you're thinking your project will cost, your estimates at this point. And the proposal parts, this is what some of the other segments look like. What is your need or opportunity? There's a section for you to describe that. What you will do, again, highlights. You don't have to have everything nailed down as to how you were going to address it, but just the general approach you're planning to take in your project. And then how will you know if your project has succeeded? These are your measures, evaluation measures, how you will know if it's been a success and you've reached your target audience and made a difference. This is what the budget section looks like. It's very, very straightforward. LSTA dollars are first, local cash or in kind, and or. You don't have to have numbers in both of these, but either one of them or combined have to be 10% of your project. That will meet your matching requirement. And then 4 is your total. And 4 will be the number that that's for the whole project. What we're asking for on the front page is the number or the amount of LSTA dollars. So that is your number 1. So whatever you put in your number 1 section category there, then that's the same number that will appear on the front page as to how much you're requesting from the federal program. This is what the eligibility page looks like. It goes through, talks about the requirements for the different categories. There's a signature required at the bottom of the page. Generally, proposal writing guidelines. It's not a long form, so we don't want you to think you have to fill up everything, but when you are doing this, be concise, but make sure your thoughts are complete on what you want to do. You know, most of us here, we're used to the library land language, so we know most of the jargon out there, but sometimes we have some interesting projects that come up that are proposing things that are not in the mainstream. So you want to make sure if you are including something there, if you have initialisms, if you have anything of that sort, that you fully explain something for that particular segment, or if you're looking to use a particular kind of equipment. We've had some things come in that gives us the name of something and we're not quite sure what it was, and it turns out to be a specific type of computer program, hardware software combo for literacy, and it was like, whoa, you know, and we didn't have quite enough information. So something like that, just it may only need an additional sentence to make sure we're clear on what you're looking to do in your proposal. You can use bullet points, so you have ideas logically laid out. You don't have to use them, but sometimes that helps keep things in order. And definitely use an active voice. And this we recommend all the way through, not to avoid using a passive voice, whether you're in the proposal phase or the application. And it's just that the library or staff will do this, or you know, it's just the active, direct approach to what you will accomplish. And you just, you know, we don't need extra explanations at this time for the most part, unless it's really tied in direct, because there's just not a lot of place on the forms that we have. We're just trying to get an idea of what you're doing, make sure it fits into not only the federal guidelines, but the state guidelines, and that you have the major points for the type of project that you're going to do. Now we come to this part about who can sign. With the proposal level, it's not as critical as to who can sign, because the proposal is not binding to either side, but generally who can sign depends, and it depends on your organization. You may have the authority within your organization to submit proposals, non-binding proposals, and to get things started. You may have a grants office, or there may be an administrator or someone else who has to be involved in signatures. That is something that we have a sense of many organizations, but we don't know the specifics of who has to sign on that part. So we will accept your proposal, but if there is a problem within your organization in signatures, the proposal might give you the best idea of what you will be required or what will be needed for the application phase. So what you find out for the proposal, if you need to check to see who has the authority, or who, you know, or if you have the authority to sign and submit these things, that this is a great time to figure that part out before you get to the application, because once we get to the application, then it does become more critical that the correct people are in line for the signatures. We do look for original signatures. Blue ink does make it really easy for us to see that, but it's not required. We can definitely check on that part. And the blue ink signatures is on the signature page, because you're submitting your your proposals via email. So we get right there. How do you submit your proposal? It's an electronic. We're asking you to use the form that is available. We sent out. It's also available on our website, and you will be emailing it to my attention as a Word document. Some organizations also like to send me a PDF, so a PDF pretty much locks the information into the document. I can take both, but we use the Word because we have to submit other information, and we take information right out of your proposals and applications for some other reporting that we have to do as well. So the requirement is to send me the email by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, September 17th. There is a signature page that you received. That has to be postmarked on or before the 17th. That is the point, the signature document that we will keep on file. And be sure to keep copies for your files, definitely of the signature page. And I do acknowledge when we have received your electronic proposal and when we have received your signature page. Now, just on the signature page, this is just restating I can't accept faxes at this part, but just remember again, signature page, September 17th, must be postmarked on or before. I'm like many of you, though, I have lots of things on my desk, and when there's deadlines, you know, that does make us get things done. So unlike many of you, work right up to the deadline to get things in, but don't let it bite you. Make sure you get that postmarked in. And if you're one of those that is great in getting things organized and planned out early, we love that too. So this is what the signature page looks like that you will be submitting. Okay. So just generally make sure you complete all the sections. It doesn't happen often, but every now and then we get one with a blank section, and it makes it very difficult to have a competitive proposal if we don't have all the information. Use the proposal instructions. Try to give a lot more detail there. If anything comes up as a question from those instructions or from today's discussion, don't hesitate to ask. Proofread. Sometimes we get some funny things come in, and that's I've done some of them myself, and last minute things, because the spell checker will catch some things, but sometimes you type a word that the spell checker, it's the right spelling, wrong word. Definitely that won't get caught. So have someone else take a quick look at it. Maybe that can help. Staple proposals if you're mailing in. That's kind of leftovers. Some people still like to drop them off, but if you do, be sure and staple them. I always need an electronic version at this point. One original signature page, and I have that date in there. Don't want you to forget, September 17th. We really don't want anyone to get caught by having a late submission, because we will not accept a late submission. So if you're giving me anything, don't put any paper clips. We don't need any extra pages on your signature page. We don't need any letters of support for the proposals. It's something that is allowable and no problem with the applications, but we do not need them at this point. Don't forget original signatures. And again, no faxes. So I've told you throughout several times that you can contact me. You probably received some emails. My email, definitely catch me that way. You have a direct line to give me a call if you want to chat about something. Not everything is easily discussed via email or text. It's kind of hard to convince some of our younger people of that, but there are times direct voice contact works the best. And let me give you one other slide here. This is something we talk about further on, that this is federal money, and our sponsor, the IMLS, the federal level, does expect to have some promotion based on that. So this is the type of language we often use that LSTA funds. They're brought to you by IMLS. We have plenty of information as we go forward when you're successful in getting funding on what types of taglines to use, and also logos that we can share with you. So I have come to the end of the project, or our program today, talking about the 2015 LSTA project grants. And if you have any questions at this point, I'm definitely open to that. I will be here and I can be available here for quite a while. So if you want to unmute your phone and talk to me, you want to call me later, type in some text in our chat box, I'd be glad to answer your questions. Otherwise, we've kept to just a little bit under an hour, and I hope to see proposals from all of you so we can get some of this federal funding for libraries